Houthis targeting international shipping. There is no solution which seems to be coming out of the kind of crisis that the global economy is facing. It's a kind of a witch's brew. The backers of the Houthis, Iran, is actually doubling down in its support for the Houthis and their actions. No signs of the Iranians pulling out their hand. Clearly, that's also a problem for us in India because a lot of our trade passes through these waters to reach markets in Europe, and we get our supplies from Europe and other parts of the West from this very vital waterway. There was a time when airstrikes, even a couple of them would have been enough to dissuade, to deter these kind of groups from continuing with this kind of action. But clearly that's not having any impact. The options are getting limited. For example, the Saudis are not interested in casting their lot with the West in this particular matter. Even weeks after the problems in the Red Sea started in the Bab al-Mandab, with the Houthis targeting international shipping and literally holding global trade hostage, there is no solution which seems to be coming out of the kind of crisis that the global economy is facing. We've seen airstrikes taking place by the US and by Britain in these areas against the Houthis, but that doesn't seem to be having any major impact on either the ability or the capability of the Houthis in attacking global shipping passing through the Red Sea. Even more importantly, it seems that the backers of the Houthis, Iran, is actually doubling down in its support for the Houthis and their actions. No signs of the Iranians pulling out their hand so that you can get a better handle over the situation. And the situation seems to be escalating. Global trade, of course, has found a kind of alternate route which goes around the Cape of Good Hope. But that is adding to cost, that's adding to time, that's adding to transactional issues, transactional costs, and not an ideal solution. But for now, that seems to be the preferred route that most global shipping is taking. Clearly, this is not a sustainable situation. Nobody can really afford that a vital waterway which connects the East with the West in many ways is going to be held hostage by a group, a militia, if you will, or a parastate organization, and the entire global economy is going to be held hostage by these guys. It's simply not acceptable. The question, however, is what do you do about it? There was a time when airstrikes, even a couple of them would have been enough to dissuade, to deter these kind of groups from continuing with this kind of action. But clearly that's not having any impact. The options are getting limited. For example, the Saudis are not interested in casting their lot with the West in this particular matter. They are wanting their own agency. They've already tried it for about 6 to 7 years. The Saudis were waging a conflict with the Houthis, didn't lead them anywhere. But they've opened a channel of communication. They are holding some kind of negotiations with the Houthis, and they don't want to jeopardize those simply because the Americans would want them to be on their side. When they needed the Americans were doing virtue signaling and were not interested. In fact, were pressurizing them, pressurizing the Saudis and the UAE to back down from what was happening in Yemen And now the shoe is on the other foot. And frankly, the Saudis have no real incentive to jump into onto the American-led bandwagon. Clearly, that's also a problem for us in India because a lot of our trade passes through these waters to reach markets in Europe, and we get our supplies from Europe and other parts of the West from this very vital waterway. So the question is that what does the rest of the world do now? What does the West, what does Asia do about the situation which is in Yemen? And there are no easy solutions. I don't think there's a multinational army that is going to be set up to take on the Houthis. That's never happened in the past. It's unlikely to happen now. Then a possibility of a US-led coalition, if you will, to enter Yemen to clear it out of the Houthis, or at least degrade the Houthi capability to strike global shipping. Unlikely, given the kind of terrain that is there in Yemen, and given the experience that the United States has already had in Afghanistan, where it fought a war for 20 years, I don't think they would be quite inclined to go into Yemen to occupy it or liberate it, depending on where you sit, then make global trade or at least ensure the freedom of navigation on these waterways. And if you're not going to be able to do it, I don't see how the bombing campaign, which is currently underway, is going to help. Of course, the bombing campaign by the US and its allies will be a tad more effective than what the Saudis and Emirates were able to do. But even then, I don't think it'll have much of an impact insofar as the ability of the Houthis, the fact that their ability to continue to get more and more supplies, get the kind of equipment required, I don't think that's going to be impacted majorly. And if that does not happen, then I think we are all staring at a situation which none of us want, but which none of us have any solutions for. One option is, of course, that a lot of the commercial shipping that passes can be escorted by vessels, naval vessels, which have anti-missile, anti-drone systems fitted onto them, and they take their chances in these waterways. That is one possible solution, but is that something which is going to be effective long term? And how does it help if this situation continues to fester or even escalate? Because if you have such a defensive kind of an approach to a problem like this, what it means is that the guy against whom you are defending has the option of, in a manner of speaking, upskilling and upgrading their capabilities, which will happen in the natural course of things as you move forward in a couple of months, a couple of years from now. And the lethality of their actions is likely to increase. We've seen this in other theaters, and there's no reason why something similar might not happen in this particular theater. So that is not really a long-term solution. It might be a bit of a band-aid solution for now. It's like what was happening with piracy, that yes, we've set up this system of patrolling those high seas. Various countries have put in their resources. Piracy has been contained, but it's not ended. And anybody who steps out of line, and there are often ships which try and cut through, the convoys try and take shortcuts and think that they'll be able to get away with it, open themselves up to some of these pirates. So that problem continues to fester. That's not been addressed. But I think the problem that the Houthis are now posing to global shipping and global trade is a lot more serious. So if that band-aid solution is not going to work, a kind of an invasion of Yemen to put boots on the ground to defeat the Houthis is not going to work. If the measures to prevent the Houthis from getting the kind of supplies they need that give them the edge and give them the reach as far as global shipping is concerned. If that's not going to work, then what is going to work? And frankly, I think that is something that military thinkers and planners around the world are trying to get their head around on what is the kind of policy steps and military measures they need to take to bring the situation under control. Until that happens, I think it will be virtually a kind of an ad hoc kind of an approach. There will be warships patrolling that region. They will try and rescue ships which come under fire. They will try and intercept, if you will, some of the drones and missiles that are fired targeting the ships. There will be countries like China whose shipping will not be molested, and there will be an incentive by other players to start targeting those ships, albeit in some kind of false flag approach, false flag attacks, to ensure that nobody gets this free ride through this region, that everybody suffers equally. And frankly, I think the Chinese also depend a lot on these waterways, given the kind of trade they are having with Europe and other parts of the world. So clearly they would also be interested in some semblance of control coming into this region. It's a kind of a witch's brew. It's a problem which is getting bigger by the hour, and frankly, there doesn't seem to be any solution in sight. And we'll have to wait and see how countries, whether everybody reconciles to the fact that this is an area which is going to cause all sorts of problems. So the best thing to do is go around the Cape of Good Hope, take that longer route to reach markets in Europe and America. But then what does it do to Egypt, which depends, almost a quarter of its income comes from the waterway, the Suez waterway. What happens to Egypt? Where does that leave Egypt, which is already in the economic doldrums? Can it afford something like this? And a country like Egypt, if that starts feeling the strain, if that starts having serious problems economically because of this blockade, which is being, and I use the word somewhat loosely, the word blockade, but I'm sure the Egyptians will start seeing it in that light. If that starts happening, what do the Egyptians do? Will they sit quietly? Will they want to intervene? The Egyptians have intervened in Yemen in the past and had paid a very heavy price for it. Will they want to try a similar adventure again, albeit with the support of many other countries, at least material and monetary support? Will they rise up to the task? They have a strong military. Okay, that military has mostly been used against their own people, but will that military now be used to some effect in Yemen? That could be one possible solution. But as of now, it's a kind of a fuzzy area, and nobody really knows how the future is going to unfold in this very vital geography, which is in India's neighborhood, which is also impacting us. And impacting us rather severely, I would say, because it's adding to our costs, it's adding to the complexity of our transport links with Europe. So yes, it's a problem for everybody who's using that waterway, and nobody really seems to have any idea how to get around it.